Hey, wait a second. If you thought I was just sleeping on the job, you're not correct at all. This is actually a quilt shoved into a pillow. That's right. I mentioned the word Quillow in a few videos back, and everyone said, Rob, you got to show us how to make a Quillow, but you got to make it cool and you got to make it modern. So check this out. One of the keys to the Quillow is obviously in the fold and the packaging. We all love our packaging. So this is the quilt, and I'm going to unpack it now. I'll teach you how to put it back together at the end of the video. And while I'm doing this, we are using Michael Miller's Cotton Couture. That's their wonderful solid line, and I just absolutely love it. The dark blue is called Royal. The turquoise is called Lagoon, and our accent fabric today is called Limeade. So let me show you. I'm going to throw it right at the camera there. Here it is. This is the one side. These are a two-sided project, right? Everything counts on these. This is where the quilt was packed in to make the pillow. And on the back, you can see this is where I've gone nuts and it really enjoyed the heck out of my free motion machine quilting as well. So I'm going to show you in the description below. We have a fantastic printable that'll take you through all the steps and the measurements. I need you to focus real quick. I'm going to show you how to cut these so that you can get it all out of 2.5 yards of each of your two main fabrics. Let's get started. So here's a great shot of the printable we have for you, as I said in that description below. And of course, Missouri Star Quilt Company has all the supplies you need, so that link is there also. And hey, while we're talking about the channel, why don't you take a moment and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already? That's probably long enough. Now, let's start talking about cutting up this fabric. You have the 2.5 yards, as I said, of our Lagoon color and of this wonderful blue, which is called Royal. Of the 2.5 yards, your first cut is going to take, as it was folded right off the bolt in the quilt shop, we're going to take and cut an 18-inch cut right off of here. Okay, so I'm just using my marks. These 18 inches, and what I do to this color, I'm also doing to the dark blue. Not to my accent color. This will be set aside for using in our pillow later. So right now, this 18-inch chunk and this 18-inch chunk, we're just going to go ahead and set aside for later use. We're coming back to those. Now, this is really, really important, and I shouldn't admit, but I've accidentally screwed this one up a couple times myself. Watch, I'm going to take my fabric. You have 2 yards left, right? Now what I want you to do is we're going to go ahead and fold it with our selvages touching, not from the opposite sides, but this is the long side down. I need to fold it so it's easy to cut, but we're only going to have one single cut of the sizes I'm about to tell you. Those are the sizes behind me. So I shake this all loose like this, so that really now as I go across here, I have my 45. And now I'm going to start cutting off slices. I take off the selvage. We never use that in our quilt construction. And then check this out. Here's the way we're going to make the rest of our pieces work. Cut yourself a 2-inch. And again, one strip, both colors, 2-inch, 3-inch. We have a 5-inch, an 8-inch. And then I'm calling this the leftovers. The leftovers are going to be roughly 23 inches. What you need to do is make sure that the leftovers are the same size from both colors, because when you build your Quillow, or I should say, this is the quilt portion of the Quillow, we're getting to the pillow later. When you build it and construct it, we are going to basically make, check this out, this is really cool. Play a little peekaboo for a second. So this is one side, and now as I expose it, you see here is the other side of the quilt. Remember, both sides really count in this. So you can see that the construction is the same. And here it is up on the back wall. There's a couple things I want you to watch real careful. So here's the entire layout. We have our 8-inch of the body color. We now have a 5-inch of the other color, we'll call it. This is that 1-inch strip of the accent. So for the body construction of the quilt itself, you need 6 strips at least at 1 inch by the length of your fabric. And then we're going to have a 2-inch of our body color. We have the 3-inch of the other color again. We have another 1 inch of our accent. And this here represents the leftovers, as I said, about 23 inches. Now you're thinking to yourself, Rob, that is the most odd looking construction you've got here. Completely 72 inches long. What are these tails doing up here? Well, once I've built this and I pressed all my seams open, I take my rotary cutter and my ruler and I cut these tails off up here and I set them aside because they're the first parts we're going to need in making our quilt top. So I want to really spend some time on that excuse me, I said quilt top, on that pillow construction, of course. So I'm hoping this makes sense. And like I said, all of those instructions are right there for the printable. You've got a nice picture of how this works. Let's dive right into the construction of our pillow top. Now, reminder, this is going to show also on both sides. So watch my fingers. This here is the entire pillow top, including all the fun little seams that you see, right? So let me show you how we did that. We started back to those half yards of those 18-inch slices we took off. Of the dark blue, I actually would like you to cut a 13 by 13 square. And of your light blue, you're gonna cut a 12 by 12 square. You're gonna use these trimmed off pieces you have right up here, right? These trims are going to at least be two sides of the 12 by 12 square of the lighter blue. And that is gonna look like this. So first we seam on all four sides, and I like to just sew on, and then I come over and I press this open. This way I make sure I have just enough. You could certainly trim it down if you wanted. Make sure you do your math correctly. I like to just go ahead and do it this way, and then I'll just simply take and trim this tail off like that. And then once the tail is cut off, that's when I come back to my dark blue, and I have my 13-inch square, as you see here, and I have stitched all the way around, as you can see. Here it is on this side. There's those seam allowances. And then what you do is you take your ruler. This is the way that my dear friend Jenny Doan likes to make her half square triangles. That's where we're really going with this, but we have a little accent piece in. I'm just going to go ahead and cut across here. Diagonal to diagonal. I am not moving my fabric. I'm just going to lift my ruler, drop it down so I'm safe. Come over here nice and right-handed. Cut this just like you see here. Now we get to go back to the ironing board and press this open, and we get these magical new parts and pieces. And because we're all Star Wars fans, we're always pressing to the dark side. And as I build all four of these, we're going to reconstruct to make the pillow front. Now, while I'm pressing these, I want you to think carefully. The pillow front, originally, you saw, had a solid on one side. Well, that's what I thought I wanted, but then I loved the way the pillow finished out, so then I wanted to put that on the outside, or the functioning part of the quilt before it was the pillow. I'm recommending you make this twice for yourselves and make this both sides. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is walk you through reconstructing. We wanted that blue diamond in the center with the fun limeade on the outside. So you see how I'm just rotating these to fit just right. You can do whatever you like with them. You can make all kinds of fun designs, but this is what I did with mine. Once that is constructed, then I'm going to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to stitch here. I'm going to stitch here, and then I'll press open and join all of those to create the pillow top. Let me show you what that looks like as it's all done. I've got one set aside right over here. Now, this particular piece is getting near that 18 inches we need. So, like I said, originally, I went ahead and sandwiched mine up with the royal blue on the back. So this construction, we're actually going right sides together with the batting inside. This is not how I handle the quilt itself. I do the quilt itself as a standard quilt construction. Then I bind it after I've trimmed it. But this one, we're going to lay these together here, stitch around it. I need to have this trimmed down, right? So what I'm really trying to say is take this piece first. This is our finished pillow top. Let's cut this nice and clean with our rotary cutter. We want this to be as exact as possible, so I'm going to take and get a little bit of this out of my way. Now I'm just going to lay my ruler here because I need to be able to see my seam allowances all the way around. Make sure you're not getting any wrinkles in as you're working through, right? Are you already dreaming about how you're going to quilt this? I think that's one of my favorite parts about being a quilt designer, is about halfway through the construction process, I start to get really excited about how I'm going to machine quilt it. And that's actually some of the caffeine that pulls me through at the end. Every now and again, because I get a little distracted, as you can probably tell, that I would want to move on to something else sooner than later. But at any rate, Here we go. Now you see we have gotten the wrong side together there. Okay, so now what I need to do, bring this just like this. Make sure it's as tidy as possible. Your batting will shift a little bit, and that's one of the major reasons I do this for the 18 pillow, but not for the big quilt. Now we're going right sides together here. Now I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to go 90% of the way around my pillow body here. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, here we come right back in after stitching all of the way around that. And of course, you know I do this all live, and you see I had a little bit of shifting because I didn't take the time to pin it. I was so excited to show you what I was doing. I neglected one of the most important steps. I should have pinned. Please do that at home, right? It's okay. For today's tutorial, I'll just trim it down. It'll make sense. We also have the opening we need. This is where we're going to pull it all right sides back out. But before we do that, let's make this thing fit a little bit better. And that's something you won't need to do because you will pin it. This is one of those parenting moments I'm having, right? Which is do what I say, not what I do. Here we go. Now we're trimmed down. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start to slowly work this out. And that bottom little edge, we can just quilt all of this as we're done, and that bottom edge will be the part that I catch in the seam allowance of putting the binding on the quilt top itself. I'm going to show you that in just a second. So this is one of the construction methods. I, again, am recommending you have this design on both sides so you have a pretty pillow front on both sides of your quilt. You will probably want to take a moment and come inside with like a purple thing and punch those corners out. But what I want to start talking about is the machine quilting at this point. You know, that's one of my favorite steps. Remember, this is a multi-layer project, right? So let me show you how I've done that. With the quilting, I just want to point this out, that remember, you have two sides of both the objects, the pillow and the quilt itself. So there's a couple of things. I enjoyed having this medallion to work in for the free motion machine quilting. I was thinking about what that was going to do to the other side as well. The pillow top, as you see here, basically was all quilted at one time before it was attached to the quilt. And for the quilt, a couple of the tricks I've used. One is I use the exact same thread in the bobbin as well as in the top of the machine. And the reason why is I wanted it to really show my quilting on one side, but if I had any tension issues or any thread problems or anything, I wanted to be able to hide it on the other side, because every now and again, I personally need to hide some stuff. We'll just say it that way, right? So it was really fun to free motion machine quilt. I had all this wonderful wide open space, but I wanted to show off and be able to hide. And then the other thing that happens with most Quillows, right, is that when you're quilting, you would normally stitch the whole pillow down on the sides and the bottom. And that's going to leave these, excuse me for saying it, but in this quilt, it would have been these terrible big straight lines that I didn't account for in the rest of the machine quilting. So if you look real close right here, and oh my goodness, there's a thread right there, right here, and a couple other spots that I don't even see right now. Those are where I've actually tacked down the pillow top. Let me show you this one more time. So, to complete what I really did is after I machine quilted all of the quilt top itself, and I did that, like I said, a couple times, standard construction, trimmed it down, put the binding on. As I was putting the binding on, I took my quilt, or my pillow top, and I basically got it so that it was able to be caught up down here in the binding itself. Once it was secured in the binding, I came up to the middle points and I tacked with my machine forward, reverse, maybe about 6 stitches in each direction. And then again up here at the top, so that technically it's open here. Most Quillows are stitched here. And of course you can do that. Just plan for it in your machine quilting, right? And now the most important part of all Quillow demonstrations, how do we get it back to look like a pillow, right? So you start on the side without the pillow top itself. Then you're going to take and you're going to fold it into basically thirds. But what I'm looking for is the edge right here of that pillow. Same on the other side, right? And from this point on, you want to turn that pillow top. Let me just adjust this a little bit so that it will be easier later for me. Going to get that a little bit more tidy there. Now what we want to do is we want to take our pillow top and turn it basically inside out. And that's why I keep saying that you have a 2 surface design area on your pillow. See, if I would have used that other same patchwork, it would have been really cool on both sides there. Now once that's done, take your quilt itself and you're going to kind of fold it into thirds this way. So I'm bringing it down to that edge. And if it's getting a little wide, just tuck it in. Actually, my construction makes it putting it away very, very easy. Fold it again this way, right? And now all of that is going to get flip-flopped and folded one more time into the pillow itself. But because we have these gaps, it makes it much easier to reach your hands in and get it nice and organized. All right, there it is, all fancy and folded up. And us quilt makers absolutely love to hide our quilts and our quilt designs all around places in our life. This one will stash nicely in the back seat of your car or on the couch. No one will even see the quilt coming right at them. But as you know, I read all these comments. That's where I got this awesome idea. Keep that feedback coming. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time here at Man Sewing.